Welcome back to another episode of 2 Minutes to Review. It's Matt.
And it's Zach.
Longest album review in under 2 minutes wins, plus some additional discussion about the album that we're doing. This time, I'm surprised it took them this long to name an album Doom Crew Inc. But
I'm glad you said that, actually, but continue, and I'll explain why I'm glad you said that.
it is the brand new album from Zakk Wylde and the Black Label Society.
You make it sound like they're a 70s, like, Motown review when they say that Zakk Wylde and the Black Label Society.
Exactly. That's what they are.
No, well, yeah, I guess so.
Wait, did I listen to the wrong album then?
You might have listened to the wrong album.
Damn it.
When you first hear Zakk Wylde's name, you probably automatically think of his work with Ozzy during the 90s and 2000s. But since he first split with Ozzy in the mid-90s, he really has made a name for himself with Black Label Society. I mean, they really have gained such a strong, loyal fan base. And they produced some really great albums, too, that really shows that Zakk's not only an incredible guitar player that we all know, but also a pretty damn good singer. So here we are. Yeah. So here we are with album number 11. Like Matt said, it's kind of surprising it's took this long to name an album Doom Crew Inc. I mean, especially the imagery alone. Like at first, I don't know if you thought this, Matt, but when you saw the album cover, did you think, wait, is this the album or is this just a t-shirt that they're selling again with the Doom Crew Inc. logo? Because it looked very familiar.
Yeah, it kind of looked like, it just looked like something you would expect from Black Label Society, but it was actually kind of a good thing because I've been wondering for a while why they haven't named anything like the Doom Crew or just Doom Crew, but here we are with, like you said, album number 11, and finally they call an album Doom Crew Inc. Yeah, I think it's like a perfect album name for them, and I honestly think that with it looking kind of like it's on a flask or like the side of a motorcycle, it looks pretty badass too.
No, like I said, it kind of looks like something that they've already, like, definitely badass, but it's almost like, man, I could have sworn I've seen this on a t-shirt already, or I saw this on a coffee mug already, but
you probably have seen it on some biker vests when you've been at shows.
You know, it's funny, when we were discussing concert cliches that we just don't understand how they got started or, you know, why they're even a thing, we talked about wearing the band's shirt to the band's concert. I've always said that the one of the only bands you can get away with doing that is Black Label Society, because and that again speaks to the fan base that they build around. They've really created like almost like I hate to be, you know, straight to the point, but a society, an inclusive group of people that proudly wear the band's logos or wear a vest with the band's patches on the back. They definitely created like a motorcycle gang kind of mentality. So I know it was a side tangent, but kind of fitting since we were talking about, we've seen that on a t-shirt before. Here we go, another t-shirt that you can definitely buy from Black Label Society. So yeah, we were excited to give this album a listen, give our 2 cents. But before we go into our thoughts on the album, wanted to give a special shout out to Lucky 13 Beard Co. Ed out of New Jersey produces some amazing beard oils, beard balms, beard butter oils, and he's been a really awesome supporter of our podcast. So much so that in addition to working with us on a special discount off of some of his great products, he actually worked with us on a product. We've talked about it before in some of the past episodes, but I'm still pinching myself that we can actually say that we helped create a beard oil. And of course, when we were discussing with Ed about what we wanted a beard oil to smell like, definitely not like a concert, definitely not like a musician for most musicians because they all kind of smell. But Matt and I agreed that the biggest, most badass rock god of all was Lemmy. So Ed did an amazing job at combining some smells and some scents to not only create something that we feel really does a great tribute to Lemmy, but also smells really, really, really good.
When we were talking about Lemmy and who we were going to fashion this thing after, well, his name obviously was one of the first to come up. And then, well, what did Lemmy represent besides just badass rock and roll? Well, bourbon, cola, tobacco, leather, badass rock and roll. Well, we can't put that into a smell. But the first 4 we could. So we did. And it smells incredible. And I'm always picky about some of the things that we push or things that we tried. So we went back and forth for a while on this, and we got it right. And it smells, like I said, incredible. If you've ever considered trying some beard balms and oils, this is where you're going to want to start. Head on over to lucky13beardco.com. Pick out the Lemmy, put it in your cart, and we're giving you even a code to pick it up. Use code EFP10 at checkout. 10% off of your order. If you put anything else in there too, you get the 10% off of that too. So it's a win-win for everybody. Lucky13, beardco.com, EFP10. Use it at checkout.
You know, this is often where I insert a really bad segue into what we're actually talking about, but this is actually really fitting. Matt, you know who could really use a beard oil, who I kind of hope he uses a beard oil?
Yeah, Zakk. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Zakk
I mean,
Wylde.
look, in fact, we've even teased about the idea of doing if you have to pick 3 episode about the best beards in rock. And I'd say, hands down, Zakk Wylde. I mean, his beard is epic. So I don't know, if Zakk's listening to this episode, let us know if you want us to hook you up with some cool beard oil. You might enjoy what you smell.
Hey,
Fellow
you know
Jersey
what?
boy.
Maybe we even do one based on Zakk Wylde. Who knows?
Ooh, a little wild beard oil smell. Interesting.
Yeah, stay tuned for that one. Anyway,
yeah, hint. But Matt, guess what?
I'm going first.
Nope, I'm going first.
Nope.
What?
Nope.
You're gonna actually fight me on this?
Yes.
Oh, bro. Fine.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
Count me in.
3, 2, 1. Pig squeal.
So if you've ever heard of the term new old stock, this album is the perfect embodiment of that phrase. This album is brand new, but it's made in the style of the old way of doing things. The production on this album is incredible. And taking this from other albums, like if you've ever listened, of course you have, if you've ever listened to like the Mafia album, or you've listened to the Blessed Hell Ride, some of these albums sound very overproduced. This album is stripped back, but it's not stripped back to the point of being acoustic. It is Zakk and the band being Zakk and the band, and it sounds killer, and the musicianship stands out even better without all of the other stuff getting in the way. End of Days and Set You Free are 2 tracks that easily show this. And speaking of Set You Free, it's a very killer, riffy, old school Ozzy feeling sound, both in guitar and in vocals. Very simple riff, but it stands out so strong. Another track like Forever in a Day could have easily have been on the Hangover Music Volume 6, but it is way better than anything that you find on that album. Then you get into the heavier tracks like Ruins and Gospel of Lies, where it really feels like old school Sabbath on their doomier side of things. And you can see where Zakk and his knowledge of Sabbath, being in Zakk Sabbath, they shine through here with a really killer song. And then when you start getting further on into the album, like Gather All My Sins easily sounds like it takes inspiration from Sabbath and Kiss and Deep Purple. But one of the things that I really want to mention on here is that Zakk's solos are just not soloing for the sake of, shredding. He actually is shredding with a purpose on each song that he plays a solo on, and it really works to this album's benefit. And finally, there's another song on here that I honestly think that, God, it's so good. It's almost like the Zeppelin "Thank You" song that that they had on. I'm blanking on the album name, but it sounds so good. Gather All My Sins, just incredible. So if you are thinking that Zakk and the guys are done, no chance.
Time's locked in. So, had some very favorable things to say about this album. What is your star ranking out of 5?
I'm going to go with 4.
Wow. Well, you know what? Before I let you explain that further, I want to go because I got some thoughts. Yeah, that's right.
Ready? You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So the first single and song off this album, Set You Free, really gives you a hope that maybe this album could really be cool. I mean, it's got that Ozzy vibe to it from the 90s. Great song, but unfortunately, while there's moments that definitely shine, and songs like Shelter Me come close to capturing that same magic on Set Me Free, unfortunately this album just falls a little flat for me. There's a little too much fat, and there's a little too many songs that try to sound like Black Sabbath and Alice in Chains combined together. It just feels flat. To me, it's not capturing the energy or the adrenaline that albums like 19 Eternal, Blessed Hellride, or Mafia had. There just doesn't seem, there's no urgency behind some of these songs. And as while maybe technically there's some cool stuff with songs like Ruins and Gospel of Lies, it just tries too hard about trying it hard at the same time. And I can't imagine if I'm to see Black Label Society live, I'd be at all excited or even into hearing them play these songs. I mean, it doesn't sound fun. But here's where it gets a little interesting and frustrating. While the songs themselves are not really anything, I hate to say, special, the exact opposite can be said about Zakk's guitar solos. They are incredible. I mean, literally, every song is saved by his guitar solos. Matt mentioned how he's not just soloing for the sake of soloing. Each note that he's playing has a purpose, and it's the right amount of technicality and melodic. I mean, it really is astonishing. I mean, on the one hand, you shouldn't be astonished because it's Zakk Wylde after all, but for someone like him who not only has been playing for so many years, but also, frankly, a good way to say it is, while most of the songs kind of sound phoned in, these guitar solos do not. They really sound incredible to the point that it makes you kind of go, man, he really should have been on Ozzy's Ordinary Man. I mean, it just shows that he really still has it. He still is the guitar god that we all know. So I hate to say it, but like the album itself, a few minor exceptions, like songs like Set You Free, Shelter Me, and even the Black Sabbath song, Gather All My Sins. Despite all those exceptions, lackluster songs, but incredible guitar solos that make it pretty enjoyable despite all of its flaws.
Got a time and star rating.
Depending on the day. So I'll also admit that this album grew on me after a few listens. Depending on the day, I would say either 2.5 or 3. I'm leaning towards 3 right now. And this is where I'll let you get into more of a discussion, Matt. Let's first, you mentioned it, I mentioned it, those guitar solos. Wow.
Yeah. So that really kind of struck me when Set You Free being the opening track, he starts soloing on there, and you think it's just going to be a Zakk solo fest because let's face it, that's one of the strongest songs on the album. And you think that he's going to start, just shredding and just ripping through the entire album. So maybe a little on the first song, it's not as tight. But once you start getting on later and later into the album, I mean, the solos are just so tight and precise for what the songs are trying to accomplish. Like Gather All My Sins, that song really surprised me because I don't like early Kiss. Actually, I don't like Kiss all that much. Everybody's gonna rag on me for saying I don't like Kiss, but I never liked Kiss. And I feel like with the inspiration that he clearly is drawing from Kiss and Deep Purple and Sabbath on that song, he could very easily just go off on like a 2.5 minute tangent on soloing, but it's reined back. It's very tasty, and it's very, how do I say this? Just very in vein with what the song needs.
I think for me, it's been a long time, if very rarely have I ever said that this is an album where I could have easily been more, probably enjoyed this album more if they took the guitar solo, if it was just the guitar solos. If they cut out all the rest of the song itself. To me, most of the songs just felt so lackluster, but then the guitar solos come in and I'm like, oh my God, this is so well thought out. And it just kind of blew my mind how, to me, an album that sounded so not thought out, or it's just so lacking thought, for there to be guitar solos that are just so precise, as you mentioned, just well done. From a production standpoint, from a writing standpoint, it just kind of blew my mind. Like, I literally could just listen to the guitar solos on this album. Like, honestly, I think the only reason why I would revisit this album, frankly, is just for the guitar solos.
And I feel the exact opposite with this one. So many times with Black Label Society do I start getting into it, and I find myself kind of trailing off. And on this album, I was actually pulled in because I was very much so intrigued by what they were doing with all of the stripped back production work on this album. Like a song like, what was it? Crazy Horse off of like Order of the Black. I liked it, but there was so much going on. And when you hear like some of Zakk and Black Label Society's best work, it's more on the simplistic side, in my opinion. Like the Blessed Hell Ride. That album wasn't nearly as heavily produced as like Mafia or Shot to Hell. Like 1919 Eternal, I think, is probably the second best produced Black Label Society album next to Blessed Hell Ride. This album, it just takes it off the reservation and says, hey, here's us. We're going to do something totally different now. And it's clear that this album is rooted in like the 70s. It's very clear through the production. And if you love, like I've been saying, if you love the 70s and you love that, for lack of a better way to say it, that new old stock feeling, and you're into Kiss and you're into Deep Purple, you are very, very much so going to love this album.
See, I felt the exact opposite. I felt that, to me, the production was just meh. The simplicity was just oversimple. I actually love the production of Mafia. I love the production of 1919 Eternal and Blessed Hell Ride. I lost focus during the verses and choruses and the songs itself. To me, it just sounded like a poor attempt at trying to sound like Sabbath and Alice in Chains. Like, I actually didn't even hear that much of the 70s influence other than Black Sabbath. And it was, for me, the guitar solos that suddenly woke me up and went, wow, where did this come from? Like, that's when it ruined my interest in. Normally, I lose focus during guitar solos. I mean, I love guitar solos, but lately, a lot of albums more recently have lost me on. I think Iron Maiden's a great example, actually, when we their last album that we reviewed. The instrumentation started to lose because it just went repetitive and on and on and on. And here it was, I'm starting to snore a little bit with some of the verses. I mean, there, again, definitely exceptions. Sorry, but the song Ruin, to me, it's just like, oh, let's move this along. Let's go. Where are we going with this? And then suddenly the guitar solo comes in. I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. Like, it almost, for me, the guitar solos on this album almost made it worth listening to this multiple times. So it's interesting. I really feel like we had very different thoughts on this album.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like a Black Label Society album, much like an Ozzy album, is how much can you headbang to it? And that's really what it is.
I couldn't headbang. I really didn't feel like I was headbanging that much to this album.
I was doing a little bit of work while I was listening to this and reviewing it, and I was sitting there like, wow, this is actually pretty good. And I found myself like banging along to it. I'm like, wow, this is new for me, doing a review where I'm getting into it on the first listen. You know, there are certain albums that you feel it right away, and this is one of the ones that I definitely did feel it right away. Like, I'm getting the intent of this album, I'm feeling the music, and I'm digging what he's doing with the solo work. And honestly, this might be another reason why I think you might be a little bit put off by this album. And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I might.
But I think the point, like, you and I differ on bands like Churches. Like, when we reviewed that album, I don't usually get into bands like that, and you love bands like that. And I love old school rock and roll when it really is old school rock and roll and it's genuine. And I'm going to
correct you on this one right now immediately, because I do love old school rock and roll. We did a whole episode about Motorhead and about their best songs. I'm sorry, but this is not old school rock and roll. This is this is far. You're going to love what I'm about to say, and I'm sure our audience is going to love this too. Greta Van Fleet is more old school rock and roll than freaking Black Label Society. This is. I'm
Please
sorry,
comment below.
Yes, comment on this. This is not old school rock and roll. This is, I love BLS, but this is an album that's trying to sound like freaking a mix of. It's trying to sound like a modern Black Sabbath, and it's coming off as a poor man's Alice in Chains.
I don't think so.
This doesn't. And I hear this old school rock and roll, and even the production. I'm sorry, this is as modern as you get.
No way.
And if this was and if it wasn't for the guitar solos, I'd be giving this album a 2-star review, and that's being nice. So yeah, wow. I'm going to correct you on that. Like this is not an old school rock and roll album, and I love old school rock and roll. This is
I completely disagree.
Let me rephrase this, and feel free, Matt, to chime in here that I'm wrong. But if you really do love Black Label Society, like if you've loved them, even like every album, you absolutely love it, you'll probably really enjoy this album too. And I'm not denying that that you won't enjoy this album. But to me, it's the guitar solos that really save it, with a few different exceptions for single songs. With that said, on a more positive note, this album made me want an instrumental album from Zakk Wylde more than ever. And I like his voice, don't get me wrong, but the whole time I'm listening to this, I'm thinking, like, man, I kind of wouldn't mind if like he did like an actual instrumentation, like a Shrapnel album where it's just his guitar solos with like drums and a backing band. Like that's how impressed I am with his technicalities still after all these years, which shouldn't be surprising considering, I mean, not only is he an acclaimed guitarist, but also he's got his own guitar line that he created. And we, even when we named the most iconic instruments, I at least called out his Bullseye Les Paul. I mean, he's definitely known for his guitar playing.
He is. And there were, if you ever see him live, he does a whole shred session, and he's done that for years. And, they sound great, and they always have. Like, I was surprised on 1919 Eternal when they did America the Beautiful. And Zakk does Christmas songs all the time. He did I'll Be Home for Christmas, all completely in his own Zakk Wylde style with no vocals. So, yeah, I mean, there are times when he does do that. This album didn't necessarily give me those types of vibes. Like, there are times when, for me, the wheels fall off and I don't like what the band does. Like, I mentioned Hangover Music Volume 6 before. I didn't like that album at all. I'll be completely honest, I didn't give the Unblackened live album really a shot. Then again, I'm not the biggest fan of live albums. But, for me, this album made me realize that I think he found the perfect blend of the amount of rock, hard rock, and a little bit of metal in here, and the softer side of Black Sabbath. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm blanking on the name of the song right now, but there's a 6-minute long ballad that they do that is very reminiscent of Zeppelin's Thank You. And I feel that if this is what Black Label Society is going to turn into, I can get into this, because maybe this is where the rest of their career is going. But then again, they've always changed course, so who knows what's going to happen in the future.
I would actually argue that the last few albums, they've always started to incorporate more of a softer sound, some more of the ballads. And I actually think that that's where I really lose them in this album. I actually enjoyed the Hangover albums. Every time a ballad started to come in on this album, I'm like, oh, come on, let's get the, because also, I think I mentioned this in my review, but there's just a lot of fat on this album. There could have been a lot of trimming, and to me, the fat really laid heavy on those ballads. Even the ballad, I think it's the ballad you're talking about, Matt, Farewell Ballad that he wrote. I think he mentioned that he actually wrote the initial idea for it while working on No More Tears of Ozzy back in the 90s. It's just a little side fact, but I'm telling you, that's where I really struggle to focus. With that in mind, because Matt, let's be real. Do our opinions really matter?
Yes.
Well, you're thinking high of yourself. I was thinking that, no, what really matters here is who had the longest review in under 2 minutes. With that in mind, Matt, would you like to know your score?
I have a feeling I already know what it is, but go ahead.
Well, I have a feeling that your feeling is right, because you came in at one of your longest reviews in a while, 2 minutes and 28 seconds.
It's good to know that my longest is still shorter than your shortest.
No, I was shorter than you.
You came in at a very balmy 2 minutes and 39 seconds.
Bullshit.
See, look at the clock.
Bullshit. Reset the clock.
What, do you want to do it all over again?
No, I'm lucky I got it out all the first time. I could have sworn I gave a shorter review than you. That's disappointing. Maybe all the commenters are right that we go on too long for a show called 2 Minutes to Review. But now comes another question. Do you agree with us? Or who do you agree with, since we gave very different reviews and conflicting reports on this album? Do you agree with Matt that this is a really refreshing, great BLS album? Do you agree with me that it's the guitar solos that save it? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can hear more podcasts like this, as well as check out some pretty cool videos as well. And once again, thank you so much to Lucky 13 Beard Co. Again, go to lucky13beardco.com. Use the code EFP10 when you check out. Also pick up a bottle of our own Lemmy-inspired beard oil. Use that EFP10 code, get 10% off your order. Can't beat that. Also, special shout out to Rootless Coffee. Really great group of guys out of Flint, Michigan, who produce some really tasty coffee and also collaborate with a lot of other artists, comic book creators, wrestlers, and even podcasts like us to produce coffee. Yeah, I said it. Coffee. We produce coffee. The Epic Footnote Roast available for a short amount of more time. You got to pick it up now before it goes away forever at rootlesscoffee.com. And if you also use the code Epic Roast, you'll get 15% off of your order. You can't beat that.
Not with a stick.
Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you join us for another episode real soon.
Oh, yeah.